Greetings. Kwe. Skaragoa. My name is Grand Chief Carl, and my Indian name is Ushtugan Migizi, and that means eagle head. And the spirit of the eagle, as we all know, is at the east, is the direction of, well, there's many different definitions, but it's the definition of truth. And the eagle is the one who flies the highest towards the Creator. He's the one who takes our messages to the Creator. It's also the direction of newborn. It's of purification. And I'm here tonight to tell you that my words are the truth. They're not open for interpretation because these words were there way before I arrived, and when I leave they will still be there. And I'm going to be doing this presentation tonight, I just finished in French, to inform you that many people has talked to me and basically told me, you're going too fast. Would it be at all possible for you to back up? We need to understand what has happened to us and why we are in this clumsy position by everybody being recognized except us. And for the people that can speak English and French, my presentation to you is a bit sort of changed, but I will say the same things, but they may not be in the same order because in English it's a different way of speaking than French. But nevertheless, I will explain tonight, because many hundreds of people on the phone, excluding the ones that have spoken to me face-to-face in meetings, they said, we like your presentations, but we need to understand a bit more that we feel may have not been covered in where we came from. So I did promise, I made a promise to be able to inform you who we are, where are we from, why are we here, why maybe some people could challenge what we are and what we're not. Some people may not even understand what we are. And I've reunited inside a book the information that is all listed in what I'm doing to you for a presentation. For example, this is the book of the Confederation. It mostly is bilingual. It has probably 500 pages back to back, and it's called General Information. It does not exclude also the annual meeting book. That is another bunch of pages, and these tell you what we've been up to, where we're going, what we're doing, and why we have a clear annual book to be able for our government to be able to govern in bringing the information to the grassroots members, the people, the real people. The General Information book could be viewed as a bit complicated, but inside the book I've corrected that, and what I did is I've put arrows. We're traditional. We've put arrows in it so you could follow this arrow, and this arrow shows you the important part, not that not everything is important, but to be able to guide you at understanding what is in this book that is so important. You have a whole bunch of things, the decisions, the Supreme Court decisions, the actual government accepting the resolution of the United Nations. That is important because they're all binded by international law and so on. Canada just can't arbitrarily, after they've accepted the resolution of the United Nations, to recognize your ability to be what you are in difference and in comparisons to others, to honor that. So I promised that I would take a step back and I would actually tell you what you may or may not know, but when it's told to you, it will come back, because many of our people went to school and they gave us a big part of the false history of Canada, yet we all know, for the ones that were risen very traditionally, basically why we're there, where we're from, who we are. Why is it that I don't feel embarrassed at meeting anybody including people on the reserve, because I was raised very traditionally. My upbringing at Lac 31,000 near Maniwaki has shown me many things when it comes to respecting fishing, hunting, entering the forest, and so on. There's like many teachings following the teachings I have reserved that I've got from Alex and the Cuban group, that also showed me the respect to the traditional Janupa, the pipe, the sacred pipe, and all our different traditional development, existence, and sharing together. So upon this promise, this is the way I'm going to start. I'm going to start in 1534 and a little before. Why? Because that was a point where we were introduced to other ethnies, other kind of people that for now are called Europeans. Specifically, as you can remember, there was Christopher Columbus that came here in 1534 and has stumbled himself on Indians. They called us India thinking Indians because they thought we were in India. But we're not Indians. We're traditional land people. Our souls, our body, our spirits are tied to Mother Earth. And the respect to all this has to come in the teachings that we actually shared together tonight. I am using this media to speak to you because Radio Canada, CBC, television, and others are all paid by the government not to let the truth out. But the truth is the truth. We cannot debate the truth. And I must advise to the liars that if you continue lying, you will live what you are and you will bring with you what you've done. If you do good, you'll bring good. If you plant in your garden tomatoes, you won't get radish. You won't get carrots. You'll get tomatoes. So in 1534, there was a guy, Christopher Columbus, that was sent from Europe. He landed here thinking he was in basically somewhere else in the world called India, and this was not it. And upon different testimonies that I've done, sometimes in court and sometimes out of court, it is very easy to understand that if the native people of this country, of this territory, of this Mother Earth, of Americas, call it what you want, would have not wanted to have the presence of the Europeans, we didn't have to fight them, because you remember there was scurvy, everybody were dying, we're the ones who saved them. And we saved them because the spirits of the native people is good. It is there because we know that we will bring with us what we did good and bad. We're very developed, we're very trained in that way to say, this is a planet that we need to share together, respect. However, we do not need to let anybody take advantage of it and destroy it. Tonight, I must say before we go on, my fight is not with the guy who lives on or off a reserve. I don't care. You know, I've given some presentations and some people came after and said, well, you know, he doesn't represent me. And I said, you know what? If your canoe is sinking and you're too stupid to understand that you need help and you want to sink to the bottom, that's okay with me. We're not running short of members. We don't want to work with somebody who wants to be alone. We don't want to be around the coyote because we are not coyote people. We are a people that was here before the arrival of the Europeans. So in 1534 they came on, and then the relationship started with us and the Europeans, which the famous exchange came about where some Indian women married some guys that were from Europe and so on, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, love is to be shared with everybody, and I'm not going to start debating whether it was right or wrong because it's irrelevant. Because it's water under the bridge, it happened, and I think that the people can grow by sharing what they are in bringing to the collectivity that growth, enabling us to learn about technologies and other ways of life, for example. And then, as you know, the first ones that came here were the French, and then they were followed by the English. I mean, I don't have to prove anything to anybody, that's the way it was. And we must say that the first people that were here were obviously the natives, the Aboriginal people, which includes the Indians, the Métis, and then the Inuits also. But why is there a difference between Indians and Métis? Why is it that the Indians are different from the Inuits? Because our occupation of the land and our sharing of the land was different. Different conditions, different mentality towards the collectivity, but the sharing was very, very important. So when the second people that were here were not Métis, the second people were Europeans, the white man, for example, then from the union of the Indians and the white man brought our people's survival to be able to adapt to the diseases they brought. And where there was created the ones who are of mixed blood. Some people call them half-blood, some people want to call themselves Métis, who cares? They still carry the blood of the ancestors. It is very clear for me to explain to you why we are what we are, why we are different, because our upbringing is different. For example, the usage of the traditional pipe. Both my children were given a pipe, and they have their Indian names. And when they pray with the pipe to the Creator. Because when you take the pipe, it's like calling the Prime Minister of Canada or the President of the United States. This is Grand Chief Carl calling. So everybody stop, we have to pick up the phone. Because it is a period, it is a moment of honesty that we have to recognize, because those traditions come from us. And then, as I said, the third people that came about were also living off the land. But before, what was important to speak about in the difference of the traditions from the Europeans to us? We had no dollar value to nothing. We shared the land. We shared everything with the community. We did not know anything about lying, because nobody wanted to lie, because there was no dollar value. There was no price list put on nothing, because everything was there to be shared. When the Europeans came here with the weapons and the rifles, the cannons and the money, the different suits, obviously, some people were very seduced by that, thinking that, well, you know, these people seem to be more advanced than we, and maybe we should look at them. But I will explain to you tonight about Indians that were status and non-status. Why that word ever came out. So, as I said, now we're in 1763, but in 1760, there was a Treaty of Paris that was brought to prepare for 1763. And 1763 is very important because it is, and it was, in 1982, put in the Canadian Constitution, where the people that do not live on a piece of land, a little piece of land in comparison to Canada, paid by the government of Canada, these people, which are who they are, some people continue to live there. But as we know, then we went from 1763, which was the peace between the English and French, that did not really involve directly the native people of this land. That is why in the Royal Proclamation, the one who inherited, the one who got that piece of land, Canada, that we now call Crown Corporation land, Crown land, was never ever sold, it was never bought, and it was never relinquished by anybody. It's still our land, and we want it back. And that's not open for debate, and we will have it back. We will have it back because we have a responsibility by the Creator to take care of Mother Earth. Obviously, the way Mother Earth has been treated here, tar sands and so on, we're just going to stop the tar sands because that's above and beyond any pollution in the world, does not reflect our responsibility to protect Mother Earth. But in 1763, they did say that the savages, we are under the protection of Her Majesty. We are the subject of the Majesty. And I asked one of my advisors, which is from Britain, he was the commander of the naval forces of Britain. I asked him, I said, what are the subjects of Her Majesty? What is that? And he explained to me, don't touch that. That's her family, her richness, her castle, her dogs, her cars. Everything that is very close to her, we are that. And we are under the protection of Her Majesty because we don't live on a reserve. It's simple. This is why the Daniels case was a victory, well, many victories, because we never lost anywhere, against the Queen. The government of Canada, which was the general prosecutor, represented the Queen and the Minister of Indian Affairs. But I have to ask you a question. If you go to court, you get a speeding ticket, and you fight it with a lawyer and you lose, do you lose or the lawyer loses? It's you. So in the case where the Queen was represented in Daniels, she lost. She lost, and why is it important for her to be lost? Because we are her subject. She has the fiduciary role to protect us against any intruders that would try and take advantage of us, our land, and so on. And it says, if you read in Article 25 of the Canadian Constitution, it's very clear. Our rights are there. Our land and the definition of our land, which we never signed, is still there for protection. Why is the Constitution of Canada, some people might say, well, why is it so important? Well, because the Constitution of Canada already recognizes who we are, and it recognizes our rights. Article 35. Well, Article 52 to start with. The supreme law in Canada is the Constitution of Canada. That's Article 52. It renders inoperative any law that is in conflict with it. So, I mean, we have nothing to debate there. Then we look at other laws. Now that we know that for the white man, the non-Aboriginal people, that Article 52 says that the supreme law in Canada is the Constitution of Canada, well, that's simple. Then we just have to follow what's already recognized for us. So we will back up to Article 35. Article 35 says, Aboriginals include Indian, Métis, and Inuits. They don't say status Indians or not status Indians, because that would be illegal. If we can recognize somebody that is coming from Jerusalem, a Jewish person, his rights, how can we tell a native person here that he doesn't have any rights when he's the first person here? He's an indigenous person to this land and everything that's tied to it. Then we go to Article 35.1. It says that our rights are recognized by the Constitution of Canada. And the Constitution of Canada, without repeating myself, Article 52 says that's the supreme law. Not to us, because in 1867, when they created the Government of Canada, they didn't create the Government of Canada for Indians. They created a foreign government to us because we are already in harmony with Mother Earth and the land resources and the respect that came with it. The white man, the non-Aboriginal people, the Europeans, created another government, and we became, from being a province, Canada was a province of England, to a country. But that was not our country. Our country was already there. So you need to understand that the land that's here, that's called Crown land, is still our land. We never abandoned it, and we want it back, and that's not open for debate. But now we're in 1763. So from 1763 to 1867, Canada created this foreign government that's not our government. And that's why now we have our government. The government of the Confederation of Aboriginal People of Canada, that is already recognized by the Government of Canada. So the Government of Canada did recognize our government, and when they recognize our government, what does their government do? It governs. So we are in a preliminary phase of creating this government that is going to bring the ability to our native people to be able to enjoy Canada, North America, call it what you want, Turtle Island, in the respect that it was brought for us. And as you noticed, lately, in the last 15-20 years, the two nations, the non-Aboriginal nation and the Aboriginal nation, has moved away because they don't have the same motivations. But now, why I'm speaking to you tonight is we're arriving to that. In 1867, like I said, taking this very slow, it's all in there, Canada created a foreign government. And in 1875, Canada contrary to the belief of Britain, created the reserve in Maniwaki, for example, which was a Hudson Bay Treaty Post. So Indians, our people, the natives, call them what you want, the first people, came there to do the famous exchange. We would exchange a whole bunch of furs. Remember, we should laugh at that a bit, a whole bunch of furs for mirror, because we were very impressed with the mirror, right? But still it happened. We were doing canoes, clothes, boots, name it, we were doing it. So the government of Canada decided to become friends with the Indians, that they call the savages. They created a reserve there. And as you know, the people that came, the people that could speak English and French, that came to these reserves for the exchange, they could speak either French or English, were put aside and they were presented the fact you should come and live here with us. And the motivations were, we're going to do the health thing. I mean, we're going to give you health programs. We're going to give you education programs. You can dress like us. Basically, you can have religion processes instead of spirituality. And it is said that less than 1% of the population that were living in a collectivity defined with communities all over the place came. And from there, this is where it became status and non-status Indians. Because the government of Canada, which in the Supreme Court decision that's here, does not have the right to tell you if you're Aboriginal or not. It's the community. Okay? So government of Canada can hand out a card to a status Indian on a reserve if he wants to have a white man's card, but it is not a government card. Our card is the real government thing. Why would communities say they don't accept our card? Because our card is the real card. And to have our card, you gotta be a person that demonstrates not that your ancestor lived on a reserve, that you are Indian. The DNA test, that doesn't lie, for example. I passed the DNA test and I was very, very successful. And I'm not challenging anybody at passing that test, because the whole idea of what we're doing has nothing to do with that. Who is more and less Indian? Don't care. But the content I have is enough to be able to support and more what I do. And I'm giving you this information because it is a matter of sharing together, not being more important or richer than another one. And I say that because where did the fact of status Indian come from? When they created the reserve, they went around, they call this a census, and they took the name down of everybody who was there. And that said, well, since you're here, since we're teaching you everything, we now realize and basically you were paid to be there too, right? Let's pay him to do nothing, maybe he'll die quicker. They were paid to be there, so they became known by the government as status Indians. But I have to ask you a question. Who were the real Indians? Was it the one that went to live a foreign way, where the rest of the Indians didn't appreciate? And because they did not move to a reserve, they were called non-status Indians. Some people in Alberta, Manitoba and Saskatchewan are now called landless Indians. I mean, that's even worse. I mean, you're telling a Jewish person that when he comes here, he has all the right, the Sikhs and everybody, but you're going to tell an Indian he's landless Indian? Somebody's got to be seriously demented to call somebody that his origins are from this place something so low. Why would you depossess people that are from this land? And I was invited to go in the center of Canada, Alberta specifically, and I asked them when we were doing a ceremony, I said, you know, some people are very attracted to the word treaty. They believe that the white man that gave them treaty gave them something, when in the opposite they were taking all the land away. All the abilities of the land to be developed, natural resources and so. And I asked him, I said, I have a really strange question to ask him. He says, yeah. I said, while you guys were signing treaties, your ancestors, nobody ever thought of the millions of deers, buffaloes, moose, and so on. They were killing them to starve your people. Yet you were actually signing a treaty, Treaty 1 to 11. I mean, how do we value in the intentions of a person that on one side of the door wants to sign a treaty to keep you quiet, and on the other side they're killing millions of buffaloes? And we're 400 years later, and I asked them, I said, you know, the treaties were never honored. For 400 years it was a lie. How would you continue believing that they're going to honor him today? So, to finish my presentation, it is important you buy this kit, because this kit contains all the information of what we're doing. Secondly, it is important that you believe in the ancestors that have defended your rights to give you the ability to be there today, to make sure that our children have rights, and that we honor our traditions towards the knowledge that is carried by the elders, the grandmothers, the grandfathers. And I say that the reason that our Confederation exists, our government now exists, is because of you. Because we have a moral, we have a responsibility to make sure that our people do not fade away. And it has nothing to do with other people that are coming here, because the ones who arrive here know we were here before. It's the Europeans that stayed that don't. So I want to say good night to you. I want to say till next time. And to always go through life with an open heart. And if you think that there's something maybe wrong, and you need to ask about it before you make your decision, out of respect. Otherwise, people might as well be children, women, and elders. If you never ever question the other side of that coin, you're lost, because your ability to share has died and has been brought by something else. So I say, Chimagwech, Niawan.